I've earned the title. I have multiple degrees, and I'm not going to prove anything to anybody. And we're going to leave it just as that.
She's not going to prove anything to anybody. That's what she said, on camera, with a straight face. But here's the problem with that statement, because when the law gets involved, you don't get to decide what you prove and what you don't.
Listen, I don't give a fuck what your narrative is. I would like for you to recreate it, double down on it, and run that shit. Because I don't give a fuck about it.
That's the energy of a woman who thinks she's untouchable. But untouchable people don't fraudulently call themselves doctors for years and walk away clean. Untouchable people don't build entire empires on credentials nobody can verify. And untouchable people definitely don't ignore a school, their own school, coming out and saying your records don't exist.
All records and transcripts are still accessible on our online portals. You can still get your transcripts. Hello. I just showed you guys the process in, how to get your transcripts. It says any degrees that have been conferred to actual graduates are still available for the record.
The school spoke, the portal exists, the transcripts are available for everyone who actually graduated. And that right there, that one sentence from a closed university, may be the thing that finally puts Dr. Chenneye Bryant in a room she cannot walk out of. Because what we're not talking about enough is that what she allegedly did isn't just embarrassing. In most states across this country, it's a crime. But here's what nobody is connecting. Let's rewind. Because before we get to handcuffs and courtrooms, you need to understand exactly how this woman built an empire and why so many people believed her for so long. Dr. Chenneye Bryant, and we're using that title very loosely right now, positioned herself as a marriage and family therapist, a spiritual mentor, a life coach, a psychology expert, and most importantly, a doctor. Not a doctor of medicine, a doctor of psychology, a PhD, the kind of degree that takes years of graduate study, thousands of hours of supervised clinical work, and a completed dissertation that you have to defend in front of a committee of people who will absolutely tear you apart if your research doesn't hold up. She built a brand on that title. She wore it like armor. She let it open doors, celebrity clients, podcast appearances, book deals, speaking circuits, Nick Cannon, Cam Newton, Shannon Sharp, B. Simone. These are not small names. These are cultural figures with massive platforms. And they sat across from this woman and engaged with her as though she was a credentialed professional.
My sessions with Nick Cannon, Cam Newton, Shannon Sharp, B. Simone, they have all been for the world to see, right? So no one knew who Dr. Bryant was prior to seeing all of my sessions that were live.
Did you catch what she just did there? She used those celebrity names as her credential. She essentially said, they vouched for me, so I don't need a degree. That's not how professional qualification works. That's not how licensing works. That's not how any of this works. But it worked on the public. For years it worked because Cheyenne is charismatic. She is articulate. She can speak in full, polished sentences about trauma and healing and relationships and God and purpose, and it sounds right. It sounds like somebody who studied. It sounds like somebody who knows. The problem is, sounding like something and being something are two completely different things. And the internet, God bless the internet, eventually started doing what the internet does best. It started fact-checking. The first thing people noticed, and this is almost too easy, is that Cheyenne has spent years positioning herself as a marriage and family expert. She gives advice to married couples. She counsels people through relationship crises. She has built her entire content brand around love, commitment, and partnership. She has never been married. Now look, being single doesn't disqualify you from understanding relationships. But when your entire professional identity is built on being a marriage expert and you've never actually been married, that raises a reasonable question. And when she was pressed on it during her Breakfast Club appearance in March 2026, her answer was something.
And what happens is married people like to shun on single folks. The Bible also says single people are happy people.
You heard that?
Look that up.
The Bible says single people are happy people. Look that up. The internet looked it up. That's not in the Bible. That's not a verse. That's not a passage. That is Cheyenne Bryant's personal remix of scripture, dressed up and delivered with the confidence of someone who assumed nobody in the room had a concordance. And this is the pattern that kept emerging. Sweeping statements delivered with total confidence. No citations, no data, no sources, just vibes, just authority, just the implied weight of that title. Dr. Cheyenne Bryant said it, so it must be true. But it kept getting worse. On a separate appearance on the Justin Leeboy show that same month, she made a statement that sent social media into a full spin cycle.
There are so many men nowadays who are ready to be married, and I meet a lot of women who want to play the field. And when you start to look at women who want a man to just perform, which goes into the same field as gold digging, that's a woman who is considered a manizer.
So now the unlicensed, unverified psychology expert is coining new terminology, a manizer. And her professional conclusion, after years of supposedly studying human behavior, is that men are more ready for marriage than women, which begs the obvious question that the entire internet immediately asked. If all these marriage-ready men are out here walking around, why hasn't she found one? But here's what's really important, and this is what critics kept hammering home. For someone presenting herself as a psychological professional, she offered almost nothing in the way of actual research, data, or clinical evidence to support any of her positions. It was all opinion, all performance, all motivational word salad wrapped in a doctoral title she may have never earned. Everything escalated in April 2026 when Cheyenne pulled up to the Joe Budden podcast to promote her new book, Live Your Promise. She showed up wearing, and this detail matters, a giant chain that said Doc, a literal piece of jewelry proclaiming her academic achievement, because apparently a degree that nobody can find needed to be commemorated in gold. And then Joe asked the question everybody wanted answered, the credentials conversation, the licensing conversation. And baby, Cheyenne went into full professor mode. Except what she taught was not accurate. She claimed that licenses are mainly necessary for therapists billing insurance companies, that if you're in private practice, a license is essentially optional, that the whole licensing system was really just about insurance paperwork.
She claimed licenses are mainly necessary for therapists who bill insurance companies. According to her, licensed professionals must diagnose clients to obtain insurance approval. But many people allegedly don't want diagnoses attached to their records.
Here's what's actually true, and this matters because it goes directly to whether laws were broken. Licensed therapists are legally required to hold active, valid licenses to practice. That applies to private practice. That applies to online sessions. That applies to every format she was operating in. The licensing system is not about insurance billing. It is about ensuring that the person treating your mental health is actually qualified and accountable to a professional board. It is consumer protection. It is the mechanism by which the public is shielded from exactly what Cheyenne allegedly did. When she said licenses are mainly for insurance purposes, she wasn't simplifying a complex system. She was actively misleading people about why licensing requirements exist, possibly because she knew she didn't have one. They are not locked behind any portal. They are the culmination of years of academic work, and they are meant to be read. Nobody could find Cheyenne's. Not one person, not one researcher, not one journalist, not one curious internet person armed with a laptop and too much time. When pushed on the missing dissertation and the missing credentials, Cheyenne offered an explanation. She said she attended Argosy University and completed her graduate psychology program there. But here's the catch. Argosy University closed in 2019, shut down completely, every campus nationwide. And Cheyenne's claim was that when she went to retrieve her transcripts for a law school teaching position application, the records were simply gone, vanished. The third-party service that allegedly held the records had a 2-year retention window, and she was past it.
That third party only holds records for 2 years. I was past my 2 years. So that means that I had no access to records.
Convenient, almost impossibly convenient. Because here's what Argosy University itself came out and said, and this is the moment everything collapsed.
All records and transcripts are still accessible on our online portals. You can still get your transcripts. Hello. I just showed you guys the process in, how to get your transcripts. It says any degrees that have been conferred to actual graduates are still available for the record.
The school said it, the portal exists. You can go there right now. You submit your information, you request your credential. And if you graduated, if you actually have that degree, it comes up. Multiple people went online and showed their Argosy diplomas. Multiple graduates confirmed they retrieved their transcripts through the exact same portal. The system works for people who have degrees. The only people who cannot access records through that portal, people who never completed a degree, people for whom there is no degree to retrieve because it was never conferred. Now, add to this the fact that she claimed her financial aid records confirmed she paid for a doctoral program. Paying for a program and completing a program are not the same thing. You can pay tuition for 4 years and still not graduate. Paying does not make you a doctor. Writing a check does not create a dissertation. Tuition receipts are not academic credentials. And yet she presented this, the fact that she paid, as evidence that the education happened. Here's where it gets psychologically fascinating and deeply telling, because every time Cheyenne was pressed on her credentials, she did not provide documentation. She did not offer transparency. She did not produce a license number, a diploma, a transcript, a dissertation title, a committee member's name, a graduation date, nothing. What she did instead was deflect, and the deflection always followed the same pattern. First, invoke God.
My obedience is to God, not to people. And so as long as I'm in His will and I'm serving and I'm doing His his word, my sheep will know my voice, even the sheep in wolf clothing. That is not my battle.
Her obedience is to God, not to the licensing board, not to the consumers who paid her for services, not to the professional standards that protect people from harm. God. So if you're asking for credentials, you're not just questioning Cheyenne. You are somehow interfering with divine will. Second, invoke envy.
I created my own lane. And so a lot of times, Marissa, when people say that you created something that maybe they couldn't, admiration turns into envy.
So the people asking for proof of your degree are just jealous. They're not concerned citizens. They're not people who may have paid for therapy from someone unqualified. They're not journalists doing their jobs. They're just haters who couldn't create what Cheyenne created. Got it. Third, invoke beauty.
According to Cheyenne, she's simply too attractive, too intelligent, and too accomplished for people to handle.
Pretty punishment. That's the phrase she used. People are coming after her because she's too beautiful and too brilliant for them to cope with. The credential controversy is not about fraud. It's about the world's inability to accept a woman this exceptional. And then during the Marissa Mitchell interview, when asked how she was holding up amid the credential controversy, she said something stunning.
I'm actually doing really good. I don't know a person who has received this amount of free marketing. It couldn't have happened in a better time for my book that just, launched a couple days ago, and within 24 hours.
Free marketing?
Free marketing. She called the credential scandal free marketing. The controversy over whether she fraudulently represented her qualifications, the thing that may determine whether she faces criminal charges, she called it a promotional gift. And she claimed the book hit the bestseller list within 24 hours of launch, which raised immediate questions about how bestseller lists actually work, since tabulating sales takes time. But that's almost a secondary concern at this point. Multiple media appearances exist in which she made unambiguous claims about her academic credentials to audiences of millions. Her sessions with major celebrities were promoted using that title. Her book was sold using that title. That is not a gray area. That is a paper trail. And law enforcement, particularly in cases where there's public documentation this extensive, doesn't need to go digging. The digging has already been done by the internet, by journalists, by channels like this one. The evidence is organized, time-stamped, and publicly available. The question isn't whether law enforcement could build a case. The question is whether someone officially files a complaint, whether a state licensing board opens a formal investigation, or whether a consumer who paid for her services decides they want their money back through legal channels. And once any one of those doors opens, it doesn't close. This is the part of the story that gets lost in all the drama of the celebrity appearances and the viral clips. Let's talk about the real victims in this situation, if it is what it appears to be. Cheyenne was not just making content, she was offering sessions. She described having a private practice. She spoke about clients, real people who came to her with real emotional pain, real relationship trauma, real mental health struggles, and trusted her because she presented herself as a qualified professional. These are not abstract people. These are real individuals who may have sought therapy, disclosed deeply personal information, made major life decisions, possibly about marriages, families, custody situations, mental health medication, based on guidance from someone who may have had no clinical training whatsoever.
This woman has been calling herself a therapist, making it seem like the people online is stupid and they're jealous of her, when as a person, you have a right to know the credentials of the person that you are seeing.
You have a right to know. That's not just a moral point, that is a legal right. Informed consent in mental health treatment includes the right to know your provider's qualifications. If those qualifications were misrepresented, if people paid for professional therapy under false pretenses, every one of those individuals has potential legal standing. And here's where it gets very serious very fast. Mental health treatment is not like hiring a bad contractor. It's not like buying a product that doesn't work as advertised. Mental health treatment involves vulnerability. It involves disclosure. It involves people at their lowest, most exposed, most trusting. The harm that an unqualified practitioner can cause, the misdiagnoses that get missed, the real conditions that go untreated, the advice given without clinical grounding, that harm can be profound and lasting, which is precisely why the law treats unauthorized mental health practice so seriously, and precisely why, if the allegations about Cheyenne's credentials prove true, the consequences would not be symbolic. They would be substantive. Here's what's remarkable about Cheyenne's strategy throughout all of this. She has not gone quiet. She has not stepped back. She has not issued a clarifying statement or provided documentation or changed her professional branding in any meaningful way. She has doubled down every single time. When the Breakfast Club asked why nobody could find her dissertation, she doubled down. When Argosy came out and said graduates can access their records, she did not produce hers. When the Marissa Mitchell show gave her a direct on-camera opportunity to simply explain the situation clearly, she said she didn't need to prove anything to anybody and pivoted to her book.
Listen, I don't give a fuck what your narrative is. I would like for you to recreate it, double down on it, and run that shit. Because I don't give a fuck about
That kind of defiance plays well on social media. It reads as unbothered and powerful. But in a legal context, when that defiance is documented across multiple public appearances, combined with a continuing pattern of using an unverified title to engage in commerce, it does not help her. It actually documents willful behavior. It shows a pattern. It demonstrates that she was made aware of the concerns repeatedly and chose to continue using the title anyway. In law, willfulness matters. It is the difference between an innocent mistake and deliberate continued misrepresentation. Every interview where she doubled down, every book promotion that went out under the doctor title after the controversy became public, all of it feeds into a timeline of knowing, intentional conduct. She may believe that defiance looks like strength, and on the internet, maybe it does. But in a courtroom, it looks like evidence. So where does this end? Historically, cases like this follow a predictable trajectory. The public pressure builds. The documentation accumulates. Eventually, someone with legal standing, a former client, a state licensing board, a consumer protection agency, a journalist with a formal complaint, files something official. And once that happens, the informal defenses that work on social media stop working. You cannot tell a state attorney general that your obedience is to God. You cannot tell a federal prosecutor that people are just jealous of your lane. You cannot tell a licensing board that your celebrity client sessions spoke for themselves. They will ask for your license number. They will ask for your credentials. They will ask for your dissertation. And the portal will be right there, confirming what it already confirmed publicly. And do our that if you graduated, your records are accessible. If they're not accessible, there's only one explanation. There is also the issue of her book. Live Your Promise is a commercial product sold to consumers on the basis of her professional identity. If that professional identity is fraudulent, the book itself becomes part of the legal exposure. Publishers are not immune from legal consequence when they platform individuals who misrepresent credentials, particularly when those misrepresentations are this publicly documented and this extensively disputed before and during the book's publication. There are layers here, and every layer involves potential legal liability for someone. For Cheyenne specifically, the conversation has already shifted from is she qualified to when does accountability arrive? The internet has done the investigative work. The school has issued a public statement. Multiple journalists and content creators have documented the inconsistencies in detail. The next step is institutional, a licensing board inquiry, a formal complaint, a legal filing. And given how publicly this is all played out, that next step is not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. Let's zoom out for a second, because beyond Cheyenne Bryant specifically, this story is about something larger. There is a crisis in the self-help and wellness space right now. The barrier to presenting yourself as an expert is almost non-existent. Social media rewards confidence and charisma far more than it rewards credentials and accuracy. A person can build an audience of millions by sounding like an authority without ever being held accountable to the standards that actual authorities are held to. And in communities where trust in traditional institutions has been eroded, where access to real mental health services has been historically limited, where people are hungry for healing and guidance, the exploitation of that need is particularly dangerous and particularly cruel. Cheyenne Bryant allegedly looked at a community that needed healing and said, I can monetize this. She allegedly looked at people's pain and said, this is an opportunity. And she allegedly constructed an identity built on credentials she may never have earned to position herself as the solution to problems she may not have been qualified to address. That is not empowerment. That is not service. That is not God's work. If the allegations prove true, it is fraud. It is predatory. And it is exactly what criminal statutes around unlicensed practice and consumer fraud were designed to address.
As a person, you have a right to know the credentials of the person that you are seeing. This lady is a damn fraud.
You have that right. You have always had that right. And the law agrees with you. The door that Cheyenne has been keeping closed, the one behind which the real documentation supposedly lives, is not going to stay closed forever. When law enforcement knocks on that door, she will not be able to respond the way she responded to the Breakfast Club. She will not be able to respond the way she responded to Marissa Mitchell. She will not be able to say she doesn't have to prove anything to anybody, because in a legal proceeding, you absolutely do. The school spoke, the portal is open, the records for actual graduates are right there. And if hers aren't, the law has a word for that. Several words, actually, and none of them are doctor.